Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Earn It podcast. And on today's episode, we are going to go over the necessary evil that it is a BSN, as well as some really important announcements. Real quick, the primary reason, before we get into the primary reason for today's episode, I'm just going to go over a couple of announcements really quick. You may or may not have already noticed by now because maybe of the way that you listen to Spotify or watch Spotify or interact with Spotify. This is now a video episode, and this is for several reasons. It's time to branch out onto YouTube, put some instructional content on YouTube, post some YouTube shorts of my content. Not really going to go into the getting a TikTok or an Instagram at this point, but I think there are also some examples where I'd like to show things on screen, and some of you might benefit from watching it, whether that is on Spotify or you choose to listen to things and watch things on YouTube. So, first of all, what is today's episode going to be about? The reason why I feel really compelled to make this episode is because I have just completed my first set of BSN classes during the summer, and it confirmed, unfortunately, what I already knew about BSN classes. Now, here's what I'm not talking about, because I have several friends that are in BSN programs where you get your RN at the same time you get your BSN. What I am talking about is the online only, BSN only classes. I'm taking this there's two perspectives to this. One is the student perspective, and one is the I am an educator perspective, right? I come from that kind of perspective, and I have an instructional design background. I have my master's degree in instructional design. So some of my critiques come from being a student, but a lot of my critiques come from my background, right? How I would build these BSN courses differently, or the overall structure of the entire program. Okay. We are going to also look at what the benefits are of the BSN. Right now, I just want to talk about the simple fact that no matter what, pretty much, it's required, right? A BSN is pretty much required. Let's just take a quick look. Might be kind of small. I'm going to read this out. This is by the American Association of Colleges and Nursing. So, according to this one pager, right, it's kind of a PDF that was created by them, and this should be fairly recent because we have sources on the bottom of the page from 2022, which I'm not going to look into on this particular video or a podcast episode, but I do think that it is important to go into it at some point. You should be able to see it at the bottom of your screen if you are watching. But I'll post a link to this in the description of the podcast. So the benefits of a BSN, which they do not point out, as opposed to having an ADN or with X amount of experience, I'm getting ahead of myself with the critiques. 24% greater odds of surviving a cardiac arrest. So apparently, if you have BSN prepared nurses, it was associated with a 24% greater odds of survival among patients who experienced in-hospital cardiac arrest. I assume they mean survival longer term, not survival from the cardiac arrest itself. In other words, bringing them back. I assume this means the actual longer term survival. So 24% greater odds of that. 24.6 lower odds of overall mortality. Hospital staffed with 80% BSN prepared nurses compared to hospital staff with only 30% BSN prepared nurses had a 24.6 lower odd of inpatient mortality. Again, I'm going to assume these were at the same hospitals. Of course, things come in waves, so I'm not really sure how you can do that because not all patients are the same, but I do understand the overall mortality. So 10% increase in BSN prepared nurses was associated with a 10% lower odds of death in patients with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia. Um, an 8% overall decrease in length of stay. In other words, the length of stay went from 5.1 days to 4.7 days on average. This is a 7.8% decrease. So there's four different sources that they use for this. This is again by the American Association of Colleges. Here's a couple of things that I have with that. One of their sources, number one listed. Why would they list themselves? I'm not sure. They listed themselves as a source on here. Nursing Outlook, 30-day inpatient surgical mortality. So you're getting the mortality rate from surgery and inpatient and 30-day kind of study. Lower post-surgical mortality. Again, this is post-surgical mortality. Changes in proportion of bachelor's nurses associated with improvements in patient outcomes. Research in nursing and health. That does not have a date on it, so I don't even know how old that fourth one is. Here's the thing. This is pretty significant changes that we're seeing here. At the same time, I do not see, when you look at BSN curricula that I looked at, I do not see how this would possibly translate. In other words, what is it exactly? And this is what they have to show. I'm sorry, but you have to show it. What is it exactly about having a BSN as opposed to having your ADN gives you greater odds of surviving cardiac arrest, lower odds of mortality, and a lower hospital stay? Please explain to me exactly from the BSN programs. Also, are these BSN just any nurse that has a BSN, or were these nurses that went through a BSN program initially when they first became nurses? Because here's the thing. There's a difference between somebody that finishes school with their BSN, or basically at the same time, and someone who goes back like 2, 3, 4, 5+ years later to get their BSN. There's obviously a big difference there. So you have to kind of define what that is, and maybe that's why it's only 24%. So again, I like those numbers, and I don't think I'm not saying any of this or making this episode to in any way discourage a BSN. What I am telling you is I was shocked by just how low the quality was and how impertinent a lot of concepts were, especially to the things that I just mentioned: cardiac arrest, lower odds. I was supposed to put it up on this screen. I just put it up bigger for you. Sorry about that. I need to know exactly how this is defined, because what I learned, and I can see my entire curriculum, by the way, has nothing to do with actual patient care. The only thing that I can say has got to be useful, okay, is evidence-based practice. That's the only thing that I could possibly extrapolate from that and agree with you on. Because I think in general, folks in general do not understand how evidence works, how important evidence is, and what the problem is. That's why you have, I'm not even going to go into that debate, so I'm not even going to say that. I'm not even going to say that. You have a lot of unscientific beliefs among nursing folks and nursing students, and I think that comes from a lack of the evidence base. I don't think that it comes from critical thinking. You can have all the critical thinking in the world that you want, but you're not going to understand how to interpret evidence and how to read studies. Another reason why statistics is unfortunately important, even though it's kind of a crappy class. It sucks, right? We most of us didn't like statistics. So Basically, the funny part is too that we have the American Association of Colleges of Nursing putting out something that says college is good. And immediately, me personally, I am a bit skeptical of the conclusions on here. Uh, and why isn't there more kind of conclusions? What about the infection risks? What about how long the nurse stays on? Yada yada, right? So that's what they say is important. Let me just discuss a few things from a student perspective, and then from an instructional design perspective, and then I want to talk about why I do not think it should be required for nurse anesthetists or nurse practitioners. And I have a very strong argument for this. Also, most of Reddit agrees with me. I made a Reddit post about this. I'm not going to show it on here because I don't want anybody to know my username on Reddit for various reasons. Various reasons why I don't want anybody to know that. So, first of all, from a student's perspective, it does feel a little bit like busy work. And the reason why it feels like busy work is because, actually, let me back up there for a second. Here's what I will say. I'm not going to say the college I went to for the BSN classes. Some of you know that are listening. And I want to say this first up. Nothing wrong with any of the instructors. And I'm not saying this to brown nose, okay? I will put my opinion on here about anybody that it has been my instructor, is my instructor, any instructor that I know of personally. Just saying right here, first and foremost, I do not give a crap who you are. If you do something that I think's messed up, if you do something that I think is wrong, if I don't agree with what you're doing, I will put it on this podcast. And if that gets back to me and I get kicked out of school or something like that, you'll hear from my attorney. But the reason why I'm saying that the instructors are amazing is because I have never seen detailed feedback to this degree in my entire life. I mean, pages and pages of feedback on things. What I will say is, I am very curious to have one. I'd love to have one of these instructors on and interview them about this very topic, because here's what I have to know. You have to know that at least a certain portion of your assignments are complete and utter hogwash. And if they are making you, instructors, create these assignments, that's inappropriate. There's a reason why instructional designers like me exist. There are very specific ways that things are to be assessed. There are very specific ways that assignments are supposed to hit various objectives. And what I can say is that is currently in what I've seen and what I've seen other people take. It's just, look, basically, if you have an assignment at any point in time, and it simply says, read this and then write about it or summarize it or tell me your thoughts and feelings on it. This is not a legitimate assignment. It should not be taken seriously. And so, if you're in nursing education, and I'm maybe speaking to my future self that I might end up as an educator one day, these assignments are a joke, and all of your students know that. They might hold you to the highest regard. They might hold nursing to the highest regard. But these assignments that you're giving, just know everybody thinks it's a joke, and it does not in any way prepare me for the real world. It doesn't prepare me for anything in life, because by the time you get to your BSN classes, you've already been through that. Oh, we need to teach APA. We need to teach it. No, you do not. No, you do not need to teach that. Let me explain this to you. You can fit that in your ADN program, of which it already is. Quit pretending that the BSN is the first kind of inkling somebody has into APA format. Also, English classes that we are required to take as a part of our prereqs, at least most of us, though they actually require APA format, not MLA. So I don't know why everybody's saying, oh, that's different from the MLA format you did in English. Let me tell you something. There was no MLA format that I did in any English class that I ever did. It was always APA. In high school, maybe it was MLA, personally. But it's been APA since the second that I stepped foot on a college campus. uh, and several different classes that require you to do research of any kind require you to use APA format. So it's not an APA thing. If you get to a bachelor's level classes and you're just now looking at APA, look, that's not the problem. Your problem to deal with. If your students at a bachelor's level do not understand what APA is or how to use it, that's their problem. You don't need to be teaching them. That's little kid stuff that they should learn in their prereqs. So there was straight up stuff on APA format. Straight up stuff on APA format. And by the way, this is why I did not say the name of the school. Literally the assignments that were used for APA understanding and worksheet. These were worksheets taken from another website that put these worksheets on there for free. In other words, and you need to watch, if your school does this, it's a red flag. And when the survey comes up for you to do your little stupid course survey that nobody likes doing, this is where you need to report, because you don't need to be accredited if you are stealing other content and material and passing it off as your own and using it for your own assignments and then charging students thousands of dollars for it. This is not something that is legal. This is something I ran into somewhere that I was involved with, and that stuff was put to a stop immediately. So here's what I'm going to say. The assignments are hogwash, dude. You need to do something different. Second of all, you have so much time. The instructors are spending so much time giving you feedback. Okay? Their time is taken up. What I can see as a previous teacher at a college setting is that they are spending a crap ton of time doing so much crap. So they don't have the time to do what they need to do, which is to teach the class, right? Not have, look, you're going to have a student pay, and I'm going to get really rowdy about this. You have to realize that a student is paying hundreds of dollars, and actually thousands of dollars, and then they get into your class, and then they have to pay another $100 and something for an ebook and an e-course that's provided by some other third party, and then you are having the student go and complete modules and quizzes and stuff with that third-party software. Listen, that's ridiculous. And even though that is actually technically legal, because you're paying for a license for it and you're making your students pay for a license, it's freaking criminal. It should be criminal. Let me explain something to you. Somebody's coming to pay you and your expertise, and then you're having them go to a third party that all their job is selling content. And quite frankly, we're not their main customers as students. You're their customer as a school. So they get you on board. Why? So that, hey, if you only pay this much money a month, we can outsource all of your instruction for you by having students do modules. And then you have insight into the things that all you have to do is just look at what they got and then put it in your grade book. You're not delivering any instruction, okay? Taking Zoom meetings ad hoc, okay, is not providing instructions. If you are having a project due or a big paper due, or there's a huge concept or a list of concepts that are taught in your class by this third party, you need to stop with the outsourcing, and you need to go back to real teaching, which is, hey, this is the concept. Let me show you how to do this, and not necessarily hand-holding either. You need to show an example of the proper way to get from A to B to C to D to E to F, not say, hey, look at these modules. So again, outsourcing instruction, outsourcing assessing, and even worse, outsourcing assignments is rampant. And everything is a writing assignment. I'm sorry, but that's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Somebody's paying you thousands of dollars to go and make a PowerPoint or to write a 3-page paper on that just summarizes other crap that, by the way, you had nothing to do with at all. There's content that you're pointing people in the direction of. There's, okay, and this is another one, videos that you're pointing people in the direction of, okay, that you had nothing to do with making, and then they're supposed to do an assignment on it. It's ridiculous. It's criminal. And you should bring it up. If you're an instructor somehow listening to this, you need to bring it up to your higher ups, because it's not your fault as the instructor, by the way. This is why I'm not going hard on the instructor. I've been put in this situation before where I had to create an entire, forget about course, entire program before I had my instructional design education. I was a subject matter expert and I had to create these things. Guess what? Just because you're a subject matter on one thing doesn't mean you know how to deliver that and package it up for other people, especially for that much money. Okay? If you're an expert on nursing, you're not an expert on education, chances are, unless you've been teaching for a long time, unless you've been around the game a long time, unless your degree maybe was education specific and maybe that one wasn't trash. So, all this to say, BSN shows some kind of benefits that we're able to see here. I will give the AACN a benefit of the doubt that they aren't being biased in saying, hey, we're we're association of colleges of nursing. Go to college more. I'm going to assume, I'm going to give all this the benefit of the doubt here. Okay. Given that the BSN programs that I have seen other people go through, I know several nurses, I've looked at several different curriculum from several different places. Okay. It's all ridiculous. You're paying for a credential. You are not paying for an education, just so you know. Now, getting to where I absolutely think it should be abolished, and let me just explain this to you, and I'll come up real nice and close to the camera here for those of you watching. I am going to make it, watch out, folks. I'm going to make it my fucking life's work to make sure that a BSN is no longer required for nurse practitioners and CRNAs, and I'm going to explain to you exactly why. Okay? Let's just start with nurse practitioner. I understand that it's a practitioner with a kind of a different mindset as a PA and obviously as a physician, okay? But you don't get that from your damn BSN. You get that from your ADN. You get that from earning your RN, and you get it from practicing nursing. You get your critical thinking skills. You get your patient experiences. You get all of that from working and earning your initial RN. That's where you get it from. To say that the BSN prepares you in any way, shape, or form other than a simple class on evidence-based practice, which, by the way, they bake all that crap into NP programs, okay? They bake all that crap into the DNP programs now, because now everything is DNP, Doctor Nurse Practitioner. They bake all the research and all that other stuff in there anyway. The BSN isn't going to do you any good. You are also, don't even get me started on, I'll do another episode on DNP programs and how, like, why are we putting all of this extra stuff in there? Your job is to practice, and your job is to take care of people. All you need to be able to do is find and reevaluate outside of normal practice, okay? Because obviously there's a lot. I'm not going to list everything that a practitioner does. Outside of your normal practice, you have to be able to find new evidence, analyze that evidence, and see if it's going to be useful in your practice. Outside of that, you do not need to be writing 20, 30, 40, 50-page papers over and over again. You do not need to be learning about culturally competent care, all this other weird leadership crap, okay? You don't. I'm sorry. If you don't know how to deliver culturally competent care by the end of your RN and doing nursing for a year or two, you're trash. If you don't know the basics of cultural competence, which is speaking of culture, this is kind of sick. it's kind of a cultural norm to understand other people's cultures in the United States at this point in time. If you do not, you're trash. Like if if you do not and you've already have your RN and you're already practicing nursing for a while and you still don't understand this, you need to just get with the program. If you're still going through it, I get it. If you're in the RN program right now, you don't understand other people's cultures, blah blah blah. Okay, you're learning right now, right? You don't get that in a BSN. That's not useful in a BSN. By the time you get to those classes, you should already be competent here. There's so much other stuff you should already be competent on before you get to the BSN level. The question is, what would better prepare nurse practitioners to be nurse practitioners? Is it going and getting a BSN after practicing nursing for a couple years before you can go on to get your ARNP? No, no, it's not. Let me explain this to you. And maybe we can look at a couple NP programs just to prove my point. Maybe I'll pull some of these up. Nurse practitioner programs. Okay. I'm just going to pull one up and we're going to go through the different classes. There's one right there. There is one at WSU. Let's look at their programs here. Oh gosh, you really don't want to give us information without family nurse practitioner. There we go. We're going to take a look at this because here's the thing. The BSN keeps you from, look, you're a science person. You're in the medical sciences. Going and being required to get just a BSN before you can go on, and there is no wiggle room about it. It locks you up. It puts handcuffs on you. Because if I want to be a nurse practitioner, I might find it more useful and more rewarding to use all my prereqs that I have and go to a 4-year university. And I might decide it might be more prudent for me to get a degree in biochemistry, biology, chemistry, genetics, nutrition. For God's sake, nutrition is huge. Nutrition is so huge. It's gigantic. And yeah, that's kind of weird because I lowered my chair like that. Whatever. Let's adjust the camera. So again, getting you can't tell me this. You can't tell me. I don't care who you are listening to this. You cannot tell me that if you already have your RN, that going and getting your BSN prepares you more to be a nurse practitioner than getting a degree in nutrition, chemistry, any of those things at all. Maybe you want to go and get a whole degree in, there's some that are like anatomy and physiology education, like stuff like that, where you're taking like an entire semester on like the hand, if you want, if you're going and you want to be an NP for like a surgeon or something, you should be able to go and dive deep into like anatomy, physiology, physiatry, like neurobiology, all of that stuff. There's so many other things for you to do. So let's just pull up. This is for an MSN program, so apparently they still do exist. I don't know how much longer they're going to exist. Okay, and this is also ridiculous too. Let me explain to you why. Before you are a nurse practitioner, you're going to be a nurse for some period of time, right? So Gonzaga University, year 1, there's 5 classes. The first class here, information technology and data management. Okay, explores the many uses of information technology and data management. The course provides learners with the knowledge and skills in information and healthcare technology needed to enhance communication and interprofessional collaboration in the current healthcare environment. Like you don't already fucking know how to do that. You've been a nurse for how long? Like you didn't use computers whenever you were going to school in the first place? That's ridiculous. Evidence-based practice for quality and safety. Oh, look, here's evidence-based practice. Instead of making somebody take it in their damn BSN and then take it again and then take it up again, and it's ridiculous. Ridiculous. Theoretical foundations for healthcare improvement. What? What are you talking about? Clinical prevention for diverse populations. That's just a bunch of hoo-woo. And finally, we get to advanced pathophysiology. Finally, we get to something that is actually pertinent. So clinical prevention for diverse populations. This is something that is also taught in BSN programs. Community health. Community health nursing is taught in BSN programs. You don't need to be teaching it again. You either teach it here in an MSN or DNP or teach it in your damn BSN. Like, don't do both. And then if you're going to do both, don't make people take a BSN, right? What if I wanted to just get like a full-on degree in research? What if I want to get a full-on degree in philosophy? What if I want to get a full-on bachelor's degree in ethics? You're putting chains on people, right? So that's the point that I'm making. And I'm sorry, but I haven't heard a good argument against it. There's enough hogwash just in the first year of the actual class. Contemporary healthcare environment, ethical delivery of care, an ethics class, Nurse 564. In the second year of becoming a nurse practitioner, you are going to learn about ethics. That's ridiculous. It's taught so many, oh my God. Like, you should know ethics by the time you're an NP. Oh, and finally, advanced pharmacology, health assessment, like actually doing a health assessment practicum, primary care practicum. Now we finally get into like legitimate classes that are directly related to how you practice. Let's see, WSU. What do we got here? Family nurse practitioner. Request information. No, I don't need to know to request information. Yada, yada, yada. It's not going to give us, let me see. All right. Look at this. Education requirements. DNP applicants must have a bachelor's degree in nursing from an accredited nursing program with a regionally accredited or higher institution. Ridiculous. Honestly, ridiculous. Or you can have your CRNA, which requires a BSN. So, whatever. Documentation, there's an interview, yada, yada. And, jumping through all these hoops. Oh, look at that. 3-year. Let's look at this. Let's look at the classes for this DNP program. Scientific inquiry and nursing, evidence-based practice, information management, a freaking IT class. Epidemiology and biostatistics for health professions. You see how all of this is taught here and we don't need to teach it in a BSN? Okay. So without ranting, first of all, the BSN, the programs that are fully online, okay, they all suck. If you can finish a class with an A and not have learned a single solitary thing, that's a fail. It shouldn't be optional to learn. You shouldn't have people be able to go through your class and not learn a single solitary thing. I don't even remember what all 3 of my classes were called that I just finished. Because I'm sorry, but like, here's the plus to that though. Here's the plus to that. You at least get, if you have that kind of thing, and here's what I'm saying, here's how you get past it, right? Here is the conclusion to the whole thing so that this isn't 38 minutes of ranting. The conclusion to the whole thing is that you simply need to realize that you're going to get out of these courses what you want to get out of the courses. If you're interested in evidence-based practice, for instance, if you know it's going to be important, if you know you want to one day spend, you want to do your shifts at the hospital and then you want to spend extra time trying to improve things, it's also a way to move up the ladder and go into management. If you want to go that route, then there are certain things that you'll be able to focus on, and you can go in depth with those while still half-assing everything else, which is just it's just what everybody did. It's just, I'm sorry, at least where I went. Uh, stop getting schools need to stop getting their students. Enough talking to schools. Realize that these instructors, these people are professionals in the field. They shouldn't be held responsible for the creation and what makes up the class. If they were made to do it by the school and organization that they're a part of, it is that organization's problem. It's that school's problem. It's not the instructor's fault. If the content sucks really bad, it's not the instructor's fault. It's the school's fault. And they should be held in account to that. So I think that's about it. So, if you like this, obviously like, subscribe. Again, on YouTube now. So, my YouTube is earnit-rn, at earnit-rn. You will find me there on YouTube. I'm going to be posting clips, breaking this up into different clips, things like that. So like, subscribe, hit the notification icon, follow, leave a comment, whatever platform you're on, go ahead and do that. Also, if you want to be on the podcast, there is a link in the description of this video and the description of this podcast so that you can fill it out and come on the podcast. You can do it remotely or in person, depending on how things are. Again, thank you so much for listening / watching now, and go out there and earn it.